Chapter 1915. Difficult to escape. The black sun soared into the sky, indiscriminately attacking everything in this area. Even Zhang Yi could not defeat the opponent under such unequal conditions. After this, Yang Xinxin finally decided to help Zhang Yi relieve the pressure. The distance between the two sides has been shortened to less than 4 kilometers, and even her arrows can reach the huge pyramid. The attacks based on the rules are also the least affected by the existence of the material world. A gigantic fallen angel puppet floated behind her, its hands opening a pitch-black bow, its black wings transforming into arrows. The huge bowstring was tightened with a creaking sound, and then 6 pitch-black arrows were shot out with a buzz. Marshal Shan's eyes turned. He had always been wary of Yang Xinxin's abilities and had never ignored her. When the arrow shot towards the pyramid, he stretched out his big hand forward, and an invisible wave instantly swept in all directions. The sharp arrow shot straight towards me, but after being swept by the invisible wave, it gradually broke into pieces. This scene made Yang Xinxin's eyes dim. She guessed that the other party had a way to deal with her ability, but this was the first time in a long time that her attack was resolved by someone else. The fundamental reason was that the opponent's combat awareness was too strong. After she shot the Sphinx with the arrow of rules, he judged her ability. The 6 arrows of rules gradually disappeared under the invisible wave. Marshal Shan raised a scornful arc at the corner of his mouth. Rule-based ability? Very interesting, isn't it? But this ability has no effect on me.
He laughed.
You don't understand at all what the so-called superpowers are. That's a collection of telekinesis. Powerful telekinesis makes your desires materialize. So, you are a person with strong desires, eager to control everything. But, he raised his head and spread his arms. No matter how strong your desires are, how can they surpass the collective beliefs of 20 million people? Yang Xinxin's eyes were heavy, and he said to Zhang Yi, "This guy is no longer human. His essence has become a combination of Kenshan's crazy desires and the thoughts of the people of Cage. In a sense, he has become a god in the world." Zhang Yi said, "No wonder, I can't see any humanity in this guy." The conversation between the two has not yet ended, and Marshal Shan's attack has come again. There was no way to avoid the indiscriminate attack of the Black Sun nuclear explosion, and one could only withstand it. However, Kenshan's energy consumption was much higher than Zhang Yi's. This is an extremely luxurious way of playing, but people can afford it. I want to see how long you can hold on. I really hope to see you wagging your tail and begging for mercy. Marshal Shan's voice came from afar, echoing throughout the entire space, like a high god that cannot be disobeyed. Don't be anxious. Let's take it slow. Zhang Yi smiled and narrowed his eyes. The battle has been going on for nearly half an hour. Be it Zhang Yi, Yang Xinxin, or Kenshan, none of them fully unleashed that kind of desperate attack method, because they all believe that time is on their side. However, Marshal Shan overlooked a very important point. He was never really a god. Pilasang City. Liang Yu, Uncle Yu, and others have quickly defeated their opponents. Thaddeus Su and Huahua basically didn't have to spend too much effort to defeat their opponents. The nine-tailed fox Kim Mi-ji and the giant wolf Park Guk-ki could clearly feel that the surging power in their bodies was being drained away. At the most critical moment of the battle, Marshal Shan took away the blessing given to them and concentrated his forces to deal with Zhang Yi. They are unimaginably weak in the face of the powerful strength of Zhang Yi's team. Even Liang Yu sighed. I thought it would be a difficult battle, but I didn't expect that the military of Cage would be so weak. And the intelligence system explained to her. Many countries that appear powerful on the surface are actually paper tigers. Only after a real war will their weakness be exposed. What's more, in such a country, the ruler who comes to power through force will worry that his subordinates will overthrow him in the same way. Therefore, incompetent leaders will only use those subordinates who are even more incompetent to ensure their absolute authority. And their subordinates will activate even more incompetent subordinates, and so on. After the battle, Liang Yu and others tried to communicate with Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, but the signals could not reach there. That's Marshal Sean's territory and our signals can't get in. So, there's no way we can go over to help. Uncle Yu said. We can only wait for their good news. Liang Yu said. But she was not referring to Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. But it was Lu Karen and Deng Shintong who were far away. At this time, Lu Karen had completed the invasion of the 3 major missile bases and successfully controlled the 50 death gods of love in the entire KG kingdom. And what she is going to do next is to give Ken Shan a real blow. Ken Shan's power comes from the faith of the people of Cage. If his faith is destroyed, he will lose all his power. A snowy owl was flying in the sky. Deng Shintong was hanging on its claws. He looked up and asked, Miss Lu, it's a bit cold outside, and it doesn't look good for me to hang outside like this. Can you let me go in and sit for a while? Lu Karen's hands were operating on the big screen in front of him at a speed so fast that it left an afterimage, and he still found time to answer his questions. No. I'm not good at being so close to other men. Just bear with it for a while. Deng Shintong sighed helplessly. He was so handsome and very rich. Why was he rejected by women? This is the first time in my life. He subconsciously touched his face. He couldn't say what he used to say. No one can beat me in terms of beauty. After Lu Karen made some operations, the map of KG country appeared on the big screen in front of him. Every inhabited area with access to the internet, television, and telephone is rapidly being lit up. After the entire map, from the border outposts in Dandong City in the north to the primitive people in the south who were still wearing animal skins, all the people who could be connected by the internet were connected. Lu Karen took a deep breath, pointed at the red module on the screen, stretched out his slender white index finger, and clicked it hard. Let's get started. Turn this country upside down. At this moment, she was above Zeluo City, the second most populous city in KG country. The lights of Zeluo City were dim at night. After she pressed the button, the hatch on the snowy owl's back suddenly opened. Hua la la. Countless pieces of paper were like fluttering butterflies, floating down towards Zeluo City in the cold wind. The power supply system of the originally dark Zeluo City was suddenly turned on, and many display screens in the city that were originally used to publicize the great achievements of Marshal Sean also lit up. Tongue. 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 The chaotic laughter spread throughout the entire Zeluo City. In the middle of the night, many people could not sleep well due to hunger and cold. The glaring light and noisy noise outside woke them up, and they went to the window to look at the source of the light. Clatter. Many pieces of paper fell from the sky and stuck to the cold glass. A pale middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and took a look, then his face was filled with fear. Because it was a leaflet, and the picture on the leaflet was a scene of their Cage country's Supreme Marshal Ken Shan enjoying wine and women in his official residence. In the picture, he and the officers around him were drinking high-end foreign liquor. The table in front of them was filled with delicious food, and many precious meats were thrown on the ground at random. Ken Shan was holding 2 naked women in his arms. The whole scene was so extravagant and lewd to an unimaginable degree. This is something that ordinary people cannot imagine in the country of Cage, after the end of the world. The middle-aged man was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He was extremely frightened. If anyone found out that he had seen this leaflet, he would definitely be punished terribly. But at the same time as fear, there was also great anger in my heart. They were starving and people were dying every day for lack of warm clothes and food. And the god who claimed to love his people like his own children and only ate 1 grain of rice a day actually had such a shameful image. The glorious and majestic image in his mind collapsed. The middle-aged man felt dizzy and dazed. He couldn't accept the reality and sat down on the floor. In KG country, he is already considered middle class, but he still worries about a mouthful of rice and broth. The first thing he thought of was to destroy the flyer to prevent it from being discovered. But when he struggled to stand up and came to the window again, his eyes widened quickly. Outside the window, flyers were floating everywhere quickly from the sky like falling snow. In a square a few kilometers away from his house, on several huge display screens, scenes even more chaotic than the one in the picture were being played. Ken Sane is a god in the eyes of ordinary people. Every time he appears in front of the camera, his look is carefully designed and beautified by countless people. So, when people see his miserable appearance in reality, it is immediately difficult for them to accept the reality. That's our beloved Marshal Kenshan? The middle-aged man covered his head, and the pain in his heart turned into reality. He covered his head and had to free one hand to press on his heart, gasping for breath to relieve the pain. The feeling of collapsed faith is indescribable. How much I loved someone before, how much I hate them now. It turns out that they are living a huge lie. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and growled, "Kenshan, you bastard. You deceived us and the entire country of Cage." Behind him, his wife, who was holding their 5- or 6-year-old son, also saw this scene. The pale and thin wife's eyes were full of shock. She screamed and then fainted. The very young son was shocked by what he saw and stared at it intently. That night, all families in Zelluo City were awakened as many mournful voices wailed from every corner of the city. They are people who cannot accept reality and are filled with grief and despair. When the top officials of Zelluo City realized all this, they immediately ordered all televisions to be turned off. But the TV can be turned off by forcibly cutting off the power, but those flyers cannot be forcibly taken back. They don't have that many people. The same situation is happening in all densely populated areas throughout the country of KG. Because of the extreme cold, more than 20 million people were concentrated in 15 cities. Therefore, Liu Karen easily controlled the networks in various places and spread these images, which were all recorded by Zhang Yi from Marshal Shan's dinner party, through smart devices. The extravagance of Chengdu with its wine and women was so stunning that even Zhang Yi was astonished, not to mention the starving and freezing people of KG. The flyers were also printed in advance. This was easier for them. In Muyan's shadow space, there was Zhang Yi's entire team, including the Fueying troops and a large number of mechanical life-form soldiers. In a small town near the city, the boy was awakened by the lights at night. After waking up, he ran outside cautiously. A flyer fell into his hand, and there were many on the ground, trees, and windows nearby. The boy looked down, and his eyes widened in surprise at the flyer in front of him. The Omega watch worn by Marshal Shan is worth 20,000 tons of rice. The Dior clothes worn by the woman next to him are worth 10,000 tons of mixed flour. Throughout the country of KG, in all areas that can be connected to the internet and telephone, this information is spreading like crazy. Some people were even woken up by the phone in the middle of the night and then heard all the joy that was happening at the blissful feast. What Marshal Shan was most proud of was that he had 20 million of the most devout subjects who regarded him as a god. Even in the most difficult times, they would be grateful from the bottom of their hearts for everything he brought and regarded him as a star of hope. It was precisely because this belief was too devout that it completely cleansed their souls. Therefore, when the truth is revealed, the backlash of this belief becomes stronger. Within the field, Marshal Shan vented his power wantonly. This seemingly endless power allowed him to suppress the invading enemies from above. But suddenly, he felt something was wrong with his body. The power obtained from the pyramid beneath him was originally like a rushing river, but it suddenly weakened drastically and became a stream, a flowing water, so weak that it was even difficult to sense. What's going on? Marshal Shan's pupils suddenly shrank, and he looked at his hands in confusion. The light of the sun god held in the palm of his hand also dimmed a lot, and was no longer pure golden yellow. After noticing that Kenshan's attack had stopped, Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin looked at each other and smiled. Everything went as planned. From the very beginning, the real killer against Marshal Shan was in Liu Karen's hands. Destroy his image, make him lose faith, and no longer be able to borrow strength from his people. Zhang Yi had done the same thing once before, and it was also a perfect layout. So this time he was also familiar with it. How about it? Do you feel that the source of your power has disappeared? Zhang Yi raised the blood-colored magic knife with both hands. The huge vortex of void behind him was spinning wildly. Power quickly gathered on the blade. The blood-like red, and the black hole-like darkness merged together, filled with destructive power like a demon. Star-piercing blade. The star-piercing cannon was released in the manner of a magic sword slashing, heading straight for Marshal Shan. Marshal Shan stared at Zhang Yi with a ferocious face. "You bastard! What on earth have you done?" 10 huge suns flew across the sky, and he threw them towards Zhang Yi with all his might, just like throwing volleyballs. The blade of the magic knife collided with the sun repeatedly. Explosions continued to sound, and the hurricane caused by the power was burning with raging flames, almost burning the entire space. Zhang Yi felt Marshal Shan's anger, and he quickly kept a certain distance away, because all energy attacks would be weakened as the spatial distance increased. After seeing this blow, he knew that Marshal Shan was really angry. However, this is also very good, as it shows that he has developed a strong sense of crisis. Now, the battle has just begun. Marshal Shan, your endless source of power has been cut off by me. Zhang Yi raised the sword in his hand towards Marshal Shan. His eyes were fierce and he muttered, 10,000 men must survive, but only one man can escape. And I, Zhang Yi, am the man with the bow, and I will end your life. Marshal Shan's long hair flew in disarray. He was still strong, but he could not hide his panic. Because he has been invincible for too long and has enjoyed a godlike life for too long, he is afraid of losing everything he has. What on earth do you want to do, man? I can give you whatever you want. By the way, are you a representative of other countries or the Holy See? He waved his arms vigorously. Tell me quickly, what do you want? Land, people, resources, food, I can give them all to you. There is no need for us to fight to the death. What I want, of course, is your death. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, with a strong smile on his lips. Really? But Marshal Shan, we have finally found a way to break through your power of faith. How can we trust you so easily? Unless you destroy the pyramid under you to show your sincerity. Marshal Shan's eyebrows were raised, and his eyes were full of anger towards his enemy. This is impossible. It is the source of my power. Having said this, he immediately stopped, which seemed to reveal something. Zhang Yi didn't believe it completely, wondering if the other party was acting. I can swear in the name of the Holy See. Zhang Yi suddenly made the sign of a cross on his chest with his left hand, and his expression became solemn. Praise God. As long as you are willing to destroy that evil pyramid, I promise that you will not be harmed at all and will continue to rule the country of Cage. Anyway, he is not a member of the Holy See, so he can just say such nice words casually. It's a pity that Marshal Shan is extremely vigilant and is not a fool. This is impossible. I won't destroy myself. Zhang Yi sighed. What about the most basic trust between people? If you are not willing to do this, it means you have been possessed by the devil. You are the evil demon. I will judge you on behalf of the Holy See. Zhang Yi drew his sword and chopped without saying a word. Marshal Shan is certainly not stupid. He is just trying to delay time and find out what went wrong. Even though the source of the power of faith has collapsed, his strength is still strong. So he put his hands together and began to gather his strength. We can't delay any longer. We must use the most powerful force to quickly wipe them out. The powerful force gathered in his palm through the sun disk under his feet, and the power of darkness appeared on his body. But the next moment, a look of astonishment appeared in Kenshan's pupils, and a hideous crack appeared on his chest. A large group of black thorns grew out of his chest, and a black light burst out. From the light, Zhang Yi felt an extremely strong evil thought, and he even subconsciously stepped back a long way. More and more black thorns grew, extending from his body, and at the end of the thorns, a flower emitting a rotten smell slowly bloomed. Flower of evil. Yang Xinshin murmured. Humans are tiny, fragile animals. But no matter how tiny they are, when their thoughts are gathered together, they will become a powerful force that cannot be ignored. Even the power of thoughts that is strong enough can change some of the rules of the world. This kind of power was understood as cause and effect in the past. Admiration and faith are power. Hatred is also a kind of power that will bear the flowers of evil. The people of Cage once admired Marshal Shan, and their hatred for him is as strong as it is now. He was backfired by this power. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said lightly, I finally understand why the strong men of ancient civilizations that I have seen before would not choose to become stronger in this way. This is a shortcut, but risks have always coexisted with benefits. The cost of being backfired is too great. The flower of evil bloomed and then burned fiercely, turning into a terrifying black flame that swallowed Marshal Shan. Marshal Shan's face was distorted, and his ears were filled with hateful curses. Ken Shan, you shameless bastard. You deceived all of us. You deserve to die. You shameless bastard. Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell, and I will curse you to be reincarnated forever and never be reborn as a human being again. You damned bastard, you dirty maggot, you stinky pig, may the sun god judge you, burn you to ashes and throw you into the cesspool. All kinds of curses filled Ken Shan's brain. Even if he covered his ears with force, he couldn't block them out. At the same time, he had to endure the pain of being burned by the fire of karma deep in his body and soul. Zhang Yi suddenly felt that even if he didn't take any action, Ken Shan would be killed by the common resentment of 20 million people. However, let's add some insurance. He never gave the enemy any chance to fight back, so he raised the huge bloody magic knife in his hand. He used Space Shuttle to reach Ken Shan at a distance of 4 kilometers. The demon god armor provided him with powerful strength, and the core furnace started to operate. The dual blessing of 100 times spatial acceleration and swamp of time increased his speed to the level of a phantom, while Ken Shan's speed was also greatly slowed down in comparison. At such a close distance, the knife, accompanied by a mighty gust of wind, slashed towards his body with a loud bang. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.